Hello everyone, and welcome to Tony's Healthy Kitchen. I am your host, Tony La Ferrara. Each episode of our 10-part video series will focus on a different health topic that is important to our well-being as we get older. With the help of our guests, we will explore and learn more about each topic from a medical perspective, and we will also focus on healthy food options, fitness tips, and delicious, easy-to-prepare recipes that will help us improve and maintain a healthy lifestyle as we get older. Today's topic is sugar. And to help us understand and learn more about this very, very important topic is a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator, Rowena Leung. Rowena, welcome to Tony's Healthy Kitchen.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
I mean, we all like sweet things, right? You know, there's Northern Ireland, we all love a little bit of pie or cake or sugar and all of that stuff, right? But as we get older, though, and our blood sugar levels go up, we have to be very careful about it. And Rowena, is sugar public enemy number one when it comes to our health and well-being?
When somebody's blood sugars are climbing and they get the diagnosis of either diabetes, prediabetes, borderline diabetes, they automatically think, oh my goodness, I've had too much sugar. But the reality is it's not just sugar that we have to be concerned about. It's actually the total amount of carbohydrate. So sugar is definitely not the only culprit. Having said that, if your blood sugars are climbing, diet and lifestyle is definitely a factor. So exercise and how you are eating, are you getting enough fiber? But also there's a lot of other factors. For example, genetics. If you are of a certain ethnicity, are you African? Are you Asian? Are you South Asian? Are you Hispanic? These are things that you cannot change, right? Also, if you are a woman and you've had gestational diabetes in the past, when you were pregnant, that puts you at a higher risk. Do you also have, something called polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS? That is also something that you can't change, but that can also influence, the risk at which somebody might have diabetes. But also, are you on certain medication? Yeah, so definitely sugar, yes, we need to be mindful of the intake, but it is not the only thing that we need to be aware of. So cutting out dessert, it certainly isn't sustainable for the majority of individuals.
Right.
Maybe in the short term, yes. But as a registered dietitian, I'm always looking for, a sustainable lifestyle commitment, right? You're going to commit it for a lifetime. It's something that you're going to be seeing yourself doing over and over again. It's not a short term. And that's why I hate the word diet, because diet implies short term, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Yeah. But as a dietitian, I always try to encourage my clients saying, you know what do you see yourself doing forever? So desserts definitely are part of our life. So many of our family gatherings, the happy times, surround ourselves by food. And inevitably, we will be having some treats here and there.
Right. So, Rowena, what are the health risks associated with eating too much sugar?
Right. So with too much sugar, it is extra calories, right? So indirectly, yes, if you have too many sweets, too many desserts, it can lead to becoming overweight and or obese, which is a risk factor for chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease and whatnot. So again, you are putting yourself at higher risk, but also don't forget that if by chance you've had too much sugar that day, I don't know if how many of us have experienced that sort of energy crash. You're high 1 minute, you're feeling really great, and all of a sudden you come crashing down and you're kind of grumpy and grouchy. So again, that is the danger to having too much sugar in your diet. And so we are looking to control, or not control, but pull back on that and maybe perhaps fill up more on fiber and protein-rich options.
Right. So when we buy something in a box, how do we read those labels so that we can understand how much sugar is in it?
Right. So right now, right now, as the label stands, what you're going to notice is that, you know, a lot of people focus on the serving size and then the calories, and then they automatically zoom down to sugar. But like I said, carbohydrate is the total, sort of the full picture here. Carbohydrate is made up of fiber, sugar, and starch. Sugar is just one component. And I've also hinted at the fact that we need to bulk up on fiber, which is the good part. But when we focus on sugar, and if you're really just sort of honing in on sugar, then what you need to remember is that every teaspoon is 4 grams of carbohydrate. And according to the World Health Organization, we are allowed up to 6 added teaspoons of sugar a day. Now, when I bring that up, 6 added teaspoons of sugar a day is equal to about 24 grams of carbohydrate. A lot of people say, wow, that's a lot of carbohydrate. And I say, well, first of all, it doesn't include natural sugars. So if you like to eat your fruit, you like your dairy, right? Your whole grains, the natural sugars coming from these types of foods like quinoa, freekeh, sorghum, any fruits, even the vegetables, like the root vegetables, like the sweet potato, the yogurt, they don't count. It's things like, all of a sudden people say, well, I'm not using white sugar, I'm using coconut sugar, I'm using maple syrup, I'm using beet sugar, I'm using cane sugar, implying that these are better options than white sugar. So yes, arguably, these other alternatives are better, but when we ingest it, the body treats it as sugar. Sugar is sugar, and no matter what type of sugar you use, we don't want you to go over 6 added teaspoons of sugar a day.
Rowena, that makes a lot of sense. You know, one of the things that I like to do is I like to snack on dried fruit, like apricots, raisins. But I know that dried fruit can be very high in calories and sugar as well.
For sure. So always, as a general rule of thumb, not only with dried fruit, but there are some individuals who drink juice as a source of vitamin C. So what I always say is fresh fruit is best. So think about, you know, pomegranate seeds, because a lot of people say, I'm drinking pomegranate juice. It's so good for you. There's so many vitamins. It's the same. It's not the same, because first, let's talk about juice, because juice, if you think about making orange juice, how many oranges does it take to squeeze that full glass of orange juice? It's probably a minimum of 5, depending on the size, right? But would you be able to eat 5 oranges in one sitting? Probably not. But that's also showing you, you know, the fruit itself has a lot of fiber and other nutrients that keep us from over ingesting, right? So again, when saying juice compared to the fruit, always choose the fruit. And now talking about the dried fruit, just because it's a little bit more concentrated, just because of the dried process. Right. So if you found dried fruit, but if you look at that ingredient list, and it also on the ingredient says, you know, they added a little bit of cane sugar, a little bit of honey, that is still added sugar. So not only is the dried fruit a source of natural sugar, but they've also added sugar to it. That is the danger. So I'm not saying don't have dried fruit, because dried fruit can be a good source of potassium, which is an important nutrient for the heart. And it's also wonderful when, you know, you have trail mix and you just need that little something sweet, or on top of cereal, on top of your oatmeal, just a sprinkle. But again, it's a sprinkle. It's, you know, a teaspoon, a little here and there. But it's also, if somebody likes, okay, figs, dates, cranberries, blueberries, mangoes, it's choosing one as opposed to, you know, a variety, and then, you know, topping it with the fresh berries, the pomegranate seeds, kiwis, right? These are the lower sugar fruit options that would be ideal.
So, Rowena, what can we do to fight those, you know, sugar cravings that we get, we all get? So is there anything we could do, anything you recommend we do to fight that? Yeah,
so oftentimes when individuals come see me about cravings of any sort, whether it's salty or sugary, we kind of have to dig deeper and look at the root cause, right? So during this discussion, it often results in a discussion about mindfulness, mindful eating. And the next time, you know, perhaps when you experience a craving, ask yourself, what type of hunger are you experiencing right now? Is it eye hunger? Is it because, the dried fruit is placed so beautifully in a way that's so inviting and you're like, I need to have this, or it just looks so beautiful and perfect, right? But you're not necessarily hungry, but all of a sudden your senses are stimulated.
Right.
Or is it because of nose hunger, where you think of an instance where you're baking something, whether it's bread, a banana bread, a zucchini bread, and all of a sudden you walk downstairs and you get a waft of that delicious smelling fresh baked good, and you're like, wow, I have to taste the bite.
I need to have some. I know.
Right?
I know.
Yeah. So, but also, are you eating in response to mouth hunger? Mouth hunger could be reflective of, are you craving something that's crunchy, sour, sweet, sugary, or is it a learned habit? Because a lot of individuals who come to see me, they say, you know what, at 3 o'clock every single day, no matter what happens, I need that pick-me-up, or I need that sweet little chocolate bar, right? But it's a learned habit. It's not necessarily because you're actually hungry, because the only real hunger that we need to be eating in response to is stomach hunger. And that's when, the stomach sends the signal to our brain, and the stomach says, I'm hungry. I need you to feed me some calories, right? But otherwise, I find a lot of individuals, pandemic or not, also have experienced some sort of emotional eating, whether it's in response to stress, anger, sadness, even happiness. When you're extra happy, people want to eat, right? So again, think about those types of hunger. And also don't forget that people will often mistaken thirst for hunger, right? So just double check. Are you thirsty or are you hungry? Because that's also a trigger, perhaps.
Yeah, that's true. But you know what, Rowena? Why is it that every time we eat something sweet, we feel so good? It really, it picks you up. It makes you feel a lot better. And
Right.
Like you were saying, maybe it's not something that your body needs, but maybe it's more of a mental thing. Maybe you
Exactly.
can work that out. Yeah.
Exactly. So again, on that note of mindfulness, it's also just the root cause, because a lot of individuals, when they have that sort of craving, they are eating in response to, it might be a stress. Is it because sort of, something's going on in their life, or they just find comfort in that certain food, right? But also, like you were saying, when ingesting sugar, it gives you that high, it gives you that feel good feeling.
Yeah.
But it's only temporary, because eventually you will come back down. And sometimes that's what I need to, discuss with the client, because it doesn't mean that you can't have your dried fruit. It doesn't mean that you can't have your chocolate, but maybe let's pair it up with some walnuts or almonds to make you feel fuller, longer, satisfied.
Right. One of the things that I like to do, as I get older, I'm a little bit more mindful of the things that I eat. I always have, a piece of apple or a pear or even a banana handy just in the fridge. And when I have that craving that I need to have something sweet, just a couple of bites of, an apple or a banana or a pear, and I'm okay. I'm fine. My body kind of says, okay, I'm good. I got some, and then you kind of forget about that. So maybe that's something that we can do. Just have something like that handy that we can bite on.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And that's often one method. One method is, try fresh fruit, because it truly is Mother Nature's dessert to all of us.
Absolutely.
Now, mentioned in the fridge, but I'm not sure if you've ever tried like frozen grapes, frozen watermelon, frozen cherries, because they're amazing, especially in the heat that we're having this summer. This could be quite satisfying as well for individuals who might be craving ice cream. But again, have you ever made nice cream because it's banana based, frozen banana.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, my grandkids love it. My
Yeah.
grandkids love it. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Especially in the summer. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. And I mean, I don't even discourage if you need a few dark chocolate chips in there, that's okay too. Right? Yeah. It's all about portion. Everything can be
balance and all of that.
Exactly.
Rowena, what about sugar substitutes? I mean, there's so much out there is that recommended? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. So in terms of the sugar substitutes, it definitely won't affect your blood sugars, right? But again, does it cut off the signal to your brain wanting sweet things? It doesn't necessarily cut the signal off. So it still is, the goal would be you could go for these sugar substitutes, but ultimately we're still going to have to find that root cause of what's making you crave that sugar, right? Because ideally, you shouldn't be craving sugar all that often.
Yes.
Or any craving of any sort, right? And ultimately it just means that your body might be telling you that you're missing, whether it's protein, fiber, fat, right? But also the other issue with sugar substitutes is that oftentimes it's much sweeter than natural sugar.
Yes, it is.
Right? So sometimes individuals who are bakers or they use a certain amount of sugar per day, they've got to adjust the amount to their personal preference. But also why some individuals may not like it is because there's sometimes an aftertaste with certain ones. But there's also, certain sweeteners are given a bad reputation, for example, aspartame, right? But the truth is, for about 130-pound individual, you would need to drink about 12 cans of Diet Coke before you would, let's say, quote unquote, overdose on aspartame. Right. So for the average person, I don't think that the average person could drink 12 cans of Diet Coke. Yes. There are some individuals, but I'm just saying in general, if you're going to have a Diet Coke, you can. Don't feel bad about it. But if also, as a registered dietitian, I've also met clients who say, I zero tolerance on sugar substitutes. I just want to have natural sugar, and that's fine too. Yeah. But I would work with your preference, right?
What about honey? Is honey a good substitute for sugar?
Yeah, so in terms of honey, maple syrup, cane sugar, beet sugar, coconut sugar, all these can be substitutes for white sugar. If you're looking for, honey has a lot of medicinal benefits. Maple syrup has a lot of antioxidants. All the alternatives that I've named, for example, coconut sugar, beet sugar, cane sugar, have a lower glycemic index than white sugar. So when I say lower glycemic index, it means that it doesn't affect the blood sugar as fast. But ultimately, when you take a teaspoon of honey, the body will digest it like sugar. So you still need to be very, very, very conscious about the amount. You can't overdo it because it will. If you have too much, same thing. If you do have blood sugar, if you do have, diabetes, it will spike the blood sugar. Right.
So, I mean, honey, it has all of those other really great qualities to it, right? Mm-hmm. Great for your health, all of that. But like you're saying, too much of it can be just as bad as sugar, can it?
Exactly.
Yeah, and you said it, that, everything is in balance, everything in moderation so that we don't overdo it. I mean, even sugar itself, just by itself, it's not a bad thing, right?
No, exactly.
But eating too much of it, of course, it is, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, like we were talking about right now, it's summertime. It's very hot. A lot of people will go for things like ice cream. But on the market, there's a lot of low calorie, low sugar ice creams out there, right? So I'm sure you've seen some of them, and in a whole tub, you eat a scoop of it and it's only like 25 calories or something like that. Because again, they do have a lot of sugar alcohols. We haven't discussed this yet, but sugar alcohols are anything like sorbitol, mannitol, xylitol, anything with the word ending with OL. So again, they don't affect our blood sugar. They also don't affect our caloric intake. But if you have more than 10 grams of sugar alcohols per day, you might run into digestive issues or an upset stomach. So just be careful, because a lot of people say, well, you know what? If I have a scoop of this type of ice cream, I'm barely eating anything. So before you know it, they're having the whole tub, which is sort of not the idea, because again, we're always, as dietitians, we're always saying, you know what, go for the portion control. So in that way, like you and I were just saying, if you want ice cream, go for the real deal. Go for your favorite ice cream. Feel satisfied, but control the portion.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the idea.
All right. So we're talking about eating ice cream. And do you have any favorite recipes that you use and you recommend to your clients that will satisfy our sugar craving?
Yeah. So, for example, I do love chocolate, but
who doesn't? Yeah.
Yeah. So I generally do buy 70% cocoa or higher, but I also love to make a dark chocolate hemp bark. So the base would be 70% dark chocolate. You melt it, and then you would add hemp seeds, or you would add almond slivers, or walnut chunks, or pecans, or pistachios, right? And then on top of that, this is where I would add dried fruit, because there's so many dried fruit varieties, blueberry, mango, ginger, peaches, pineapple, coconut, right? This is where you can get a little creative, but once you pop that into the freezer, you always have chocolate on hand. And I love just to break a little piece off, because that's also a potential method for somebody who considers themselves a chocoholic. Because if it's in the cupboard, it's easily accessible and they're always just munching away. But if it's in the freezer, it's going to take a little bit longer to chew through. And that's also something that if somebody has just a sugar addiction per se, also be mindful of how many times you chew something, right? Because maybe you're just inhaling that and not truly enjoying it. And it all ties back to mindfulness. Are you enjoying the food that you're having?
Going back to what you said before, that sometimes, we need to maybe retrain ourselves, retrain our mind that, hey, it's okay, you can live without sugar, right?
Yes. Exactly. Because again, like you were saying, that's exactly where people don't even think about it, because they're like, oh yeah, I have a coffee. But that's exactly why during sessions we say, okay, what do you put in your coffee? And then what do you put in your oatmeal? Because some people will put, the dried fruit, but they'll also add the brown sugar and then something else, right? But on top of an oatmeal that's already sweetened. And this is where individuals just need to start thinking or rethink about, where can I cut down? Because as a dietitian, we're not asking somebody to go from point A to point B, the extremes, because we know that it's not sustainable. But we want you to change step by step. So every little change you can make will add up to a huge change. And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, so it is possible then, Rowena, to retrain our mind and to retrain our body into maybe not liking sugar so much.
Right. Or using things like cinnamon, because cinnamon in coffee is amazing. Yeah. Cinnamon in oatmeal is really great. And if somebody says, you know what, I really need to have brown sugar in my oatmeal, that's fine. But let's change the dried fruit to fresh fruit. And then the next step would be, well, how did you feel about the fresh fruit in the oatmeal? Can we try with no sugar in the oatmeal, right? It's a step-by-step process where it's not an overnight, like, wean yourself immediately. It's a step-by-step process, because we know it's a food and a person, the relationship is really special, and it's going to take time.
So there are things that we can do. We can retrain our mind. We can relearn a few tricks that can help us say no to sugar and say no to to a lot of sweet things.
Exactly. And I don't know about you, but automatically when I find a baking recipe, I often try to cut down the sugar amount automatically by half.
Rowena, that's an excellent suggestion. I also have a recipe that I would like to share with our viewers. It's my grilled peaches topped with ricotta and honey, toasted pistachios, and crumbled amaretto cookies. It's a very simple, easy recipe to put together. Grill a couple of peaches that have been cut in half and brushed with melted butter. Combine ricotta with honey and mix until creamy and smooth. Top the grilled peaches with some ricotta, sprinkle a handful of toasted pistachios, and a few crumbled amaretto cookies. There you have it, one of the easiest and most delicious desserts you will ever make. Rowena, thank you so much. Really appreciate your lesson today about sugar and how we can fight, the sugar cravings, and how we can substitute other things to fight those cravings. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you again in another episode, I'm sure.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to all of you for dropping by my kitchen, Tony's Healthy Kitchen. Please join me again next week. We will discuss the causes and the effects of inflammation on our body. Our guest will be certified dietitian Rowena Leung in Cell. Until then, be well and stay healthy.